Welcome, everyone, to this performance of Dawn and Other Difficult Beginnings. I have 6 things to say as a pre-show announcement. All of you have many places you could be right now, and many things you could be doing with your time. Thank you for being here. Number 2, silence. So you can listen and give attention. And we have a videographer, so there's no need to take documentation of your own. And we are going to be posting the recorded video that we make here tonight online, so as long as the cloud is still up in the sky or down on the ground, wherever it is, you can see this recording. Number 3, the running time is 1 hour and 16 minutes. We will have a 10-minute intermission at the middle of the show, and then afterwards there are refreshments. Number 4, hold your applause until the end, please. Jeff has designed this to be an integrated performance. We'd like you to have an uninterrupted flow from one song and story to the next. And number 5, I am Brian Sainer. I worked with Jeff as a rehearsal coach, and I'm also the stage hand, so if you see me coming onto the stage and rearranging things, that's part of the performance. We rehearsed that. Number 6, the performers will be introduced during the performance, but now I would like to introduce Dr. Charles Smith, who will be accompanying on the piano, and the writer and performer, Jeff Ediger.
That coffee's good. You know, if a guy wanted to prove that beginnings are hard, all he'd have to do is pull together a few statistics about how many people, myself included, jumpstart the day with a cup of coffee. But what I want to know is this. Does God drink coffee? I mean, the beginning of all beginnings. Was that a difficult thing to pull off? Hard enough that I could have benefited from an extra jolt of energy? Maybe it wasn't the Big Bang. Maybe it was just the big gulp. Most creation myths contain any number of mishaps, suggesting it wasn't a piece of cake. Even the Judeo-Christian myths only seem straightforward if you don't dig too deeply. Some rabbis who studied the writings closely suggest God made any number of rough drafts before deciding on one that was worthy of being implemented. Some go so far as to say whole worlds, thousands of them, were created and destroyed before one was made that could be declared that it was good. Beginnings are hard, even for the gods, it seems. This first song I'll be singing is titled Creation, and it's suggestive of the turmoil that may have accompanied this beginning of all beginnings. Then life was not life was not, no vast expanse of air, nor vast
deep of his ocean. Then death was not death was not. No change of day and night, and covering all the globe was lost in gloom. All was unseen, one universe unknown. Then there was one alone, called himself existing, beyond and apart was naught. That uprose desire, fierce glowing desire, the seed of spirit, the germ of mind, the source of life, begetting mighty forces, all in restless motion. All men knows, all cannot declare, whence come creation. He, the primal one, whose eye controlleth all things, he alone doth know it, or perchance even he knoweth it not.
Well, if God may not have been entirely sure how creation would turn out, the same cannot be said for Noah. I mean, Noah as in the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. They're so confident the sun's going to rise tomorrow morning, they even publish the precise moment it'll peek over the horizon on our weather channels. And you got to admit, they're pretty accurate. But that's only because they operate in a mechanistic universe where everything runs by laws and principles and runs with clock-like regularity. If you wanted to get in touch with the possibility that it might be a difficult thing to get the sun to rise in the morning, you would have to conceive of active agents being involved. Whenever actors get involved, any number of things can go wrong. Fortunately, we have such a realm available to us. It's called the mythological realm. Now, I know it's not real in a material way, at least not in a way that science would recognize, but it has imaginal heft. And there are a whole lot of truths in life that only get revealed by means of the imagination. Consider, for instance, one of the most picturesque names I know for the dawn. It's called Running Light. This was a name given to Ushas, the Vedic goddess of the dawn. And it's a pretty name, kind of poetic, isn't it? But let's take a closer look here with a bit more jaundiced eye. Because here you've got this blazing ball of fire that's so hot that if you get anywhere near it, I mean like within 90 million miles of it, you'll be burned to a crisp. And it's not just sitting up there in the sky, it's running across the sky. And this doesn't just happen once and done. It happens every day, dawn till dusk. Well, if you ask me, that's a recipe for disaster. And that's just what the sun god Helios learned when he foolishly said he would give his teenage son Phaeton anything he asked for. Well, Phaeton's only desire was to drive the chariot that the sun sits in as it races across the sky. Helios was distraught. He knew how hard it was even for someone as skilled as himself, to keep those horses aligned on their preordained path. But Phaeton was persistent. And besides, he had made a promise. So, having received his final instructions, Phaeton steps into the chariot and grabs the reins. The horses leap into the heavens. But suddenly, they divert from their course because Phaeton is a spindly teenage boy. Helios is a mature man, very different weights, and the horses aren't used to this change in weight. And so they go off course. Phaeton, he doesn't know what he's doing. He panics and he drops the reins. The horses plunge to the earth. Whole trees burst into flames. Meadows turn white. Nations are burned to a crisp. Even Atlas is having a hard time keeping the white-hot earth on his shoulders. The people cry out to Zeus, and Zeus climbs to the highest summit of the heavens, and he hurls down his thunderbolt, knocking Phaeton from the chariot, and he plummets to his death. The horses break free of their harness, and this allows Zeus to still the chariot and capture the horses. Now, myths aren't just entertaining stories. They have lessons to teach us. And one of the lessons we learn from this story is that a lot of things in life that we take for granted are a whole lot more difficult than we presume. But the young start beginner, the naive beginner with an attitude, says, anything I can't do is easy. That's what Phaeton thought. But it's not that way. All beginnings are hard. This maxim comes to us from Rabbi Ishmael in his commentary contained in the Talmud concerning the moment the ancestors of the Israelites stand at the foot of Mount Sinai where they were going to receive the Torah. Now, the Torah contains prescriptions for living that are not easily mastered. Hence, Rabbi Ishmael's conciliatory statement, all beginnings are hard. The German philosopher Goethe said something similar, but with a bit more optimism. Everything is hard before it is easy. Any beginning of substance is going to require us to deepen our understanding of some new aspect of life, to acquire skills that we didn't formerly possess, and to even deepen our character. Did you ever notice that about beginnings? Why do we make New Year's resolutions? Because any beginning of substance contains within it a call for us to become better persons. But the diligent beginner, the humble beginner, who submits to the discipline, spends the time practicing so as to acquire new skills, and becomes capable of perseverance, will eventually achieve a measure of ease, perhaps even graceful ease. Such is the state having been achieved by Ushas, the Vedic goddess of the dawn. As she is presented in Vedic lore, she is the wife of the sun and the daughter of the sky. In either case, she is perpetually young, being born anew each day, and she is beautiful, intended by this beauty to cause us to follow her. She's even said to bare her breasts for all to admire. Here then is Gustav Holst's hymn of praise to the Vedic goddess, Ushas, the Vedic goddess of the dawn.
Behold the dawn, the fairest of all visions. Day's glory now appears. Arise, for the night hath fled. Arise and greet the dawn. Welcome her, unveiled she now appeareth. All things greet her radiant star. On my winged horse We hail thee as our Queen. Heaven's breath awakeneth creation. The sky is full of flame. Eastern portals open wide. The sun draws nigh. Greeting thee, the holy fires ascendeth. Greeting thee, our ears arise. Greeting thee, the Son appeareth. Greeting thee, thy worshippers bow down and bless and adore.
So there was a caveat to Usha's assignment I didn't mention. She's been instructed to only awaken the devout and those who are open-minded. The closed-minded person is allowed to slumber throughout the day. Well, the two boys in this next story, and one of them was me, would have done well to pay heed to this caveat. There was a girl who lived near me, and my girl in my first grade class who lived near me. I don't know how it happened, but somehow we ended up walking home together after school every day. One of the other boys in our class must have seen us because one morning on the playground, before the bell rang, he started taunting me, loud enough for everyone to hear. Jeff has a girlfriend, Jeff has a girlfriend. Well, it's not cool to have a girlfriend in first grade. So I defend my honor. She's not my girlfriend. And then to drive the point home, I jumped on him and started pounding him. He, of course, returned the favor. But before we could do much damage, a teacher came along and marched us off to the principal's office. But before we could appear before our judge, we had to hang up our coats in the coat room. At which point my fear got the better of me, and I offered him a bribe. I gave him a pen. And not just any pen. It was a pen shaped like a baseball bat. Now, how cool is that? A pen shaped like a baseball bat is a pretty precious thing for a first grade boy. But it did the trick. By the time we had reached the principal's office, we had negotiated a truce. I don't remember what happened to the girl, but I suspect that thought of a friendship didn't blossom because whether she knew it or not, I had betrayed her. But what if things had gone down differently? What if something happened to me like what happened to Phil Connors? Now, I don't imagine any of you remember who that is, but he's the obnoxious newscaster in the film Groundhog Day, who resents having to go what he considers a humiliating assignment, having to go every year to Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, to report on whether the groundhog will see its shadow or not, the outcome somehow having something to do with the outcome, with how long winter will last. Well, he takes out his resentment on everyone around him. That is, until life gets fed up with him and forces him to relive the same day over and over again until he learns how to treat people with respect. Well, what if something like that had happened to me? I wake up to the same day, every day, have to endure that taunting, defend my supposed honor, and give up my pen shaped like a baseball bat just to keep the peace. Well, like Phil, I might have started to learn from the repetitions of the situation to manipulate circumstances and get what I wanted. And then, as happened to Phil, these manipulations might have started to turn out into life lessons to actually teach me how to respect people for real. Well, on one of these do-overs, I might have tried to reframe the situation. She's not my girlfriend. She's just a friend. And then as I'm listening to these, repetitions, I might start to notice how loud he says this taunting. And I might start to wonder if maybe he's not really genuine, that they're kind of over the top. I hadn't studied Shakespeare yet, but it was a kind of methinks thou dost protest too much situation. So the next day, I might try something like that. This. She's not my girlfriend. She's just a friend. Besides, you're just jealous. Well, judging from the look on his face, because I think that would have hit home a bit, I might start to wonder if I actually had something real value here. And so the next time this day rolled around, I might decide not to give him my pen. I might have saved it and given it to the girl instead, the next time we walked home together. And then, if that happened, it might have dawned on me, pun intended, that I had something of real value here, something worth more than a pen shaped like a baseball bat. So the next day, I might try something like this. I might screw up my courage and decide to drop the word just. She's not my girlfriend. She's my friend. I'm pretty sure the clock would start ticking after that, and I'd be facing a new day. Beginnings are hard because they require us to make changes in ourselves, changes that are difficult to make, especially because the status quo clings pretty hard to us. And if we try to make a change that disrupts the status quo, we're likely to meet with opposition, not just from the inside, but the outside as well, if for no other reason for jealousy. Another thing is that changes don't happen like they do in the movies. In real life, you have to make changes and then stick with those changes until they take hold, and then life catches up with you and realizes, oh, this is a different person, got to treat him differently. Well, the problem with perseverance is that doubt creeps in. We start to wonder whether anything will ever come of this. We make these changes, but life's still the same. We all long for the new day, but we also doubt that the new day may come. Emily Dickinson has written a poem about this, and it's been set to music. I'm going to sing that song for you now.
Will there really be a morning? Is there such a thing as day? Could I see it from the mountains if I were as tall as they? Morning, morning, where does morning Has it feet like water lilies? Has it feathers like a dart? Is it brought from famous countries of which I have never heard? Morning, morning, where does morning lie? Oh, some scholar, oh, some sailor, oh, some wise man from the sky, please do tell a little pilgrim where the place of morning lies. Where does morning lie? Where does morning Walking down the street one day when I was a boy with my brother, I spied a key on the sidewalk. I picked up that key. I held it as high as my short arm would reach, and I declared, I'm going to build a go-kart around this key. Now, I don't remember whether I'd eaten breakfast yet that morning, but I'm pretty sure the only thing the Queen would have chided me for is that I didn't mention 5 other impossible things I thought I could do. There's a reason the Queen tells Alice in Wonderland she believes in 6 impossible things before breakfast. Because believing is what gets you started. And if you get started early in the day, you've got all day to, well, get disillusioned. Yeah, it happens. Henry David Thoreau said it eloquently. The boy dreams of building a castle. The old man is content with a shack. On the other hand, lots of people have accomplished amazing things because they didn't know they couldn't do what they just did. I think that explains a lot of what we call beginner's luck. And here comes Goethe to the rescue again. Whatever you can do or dream you can do, begin it. Boldness has power and magic and genius in it. Begin it. Begin it now. On the other hand, you got to be a bit smart about it. There was no way I was going to build that go-kart. But not because I couldn't learn how to do it. Give me enough time and I might have been able to do it. But the reason I wouldn't is because I really didn't want to. I didn't realize this until later in life, but the go-kart was just a metaphor for me. It was a metaphor for having strength and power and the ability to go fast. But what I learned later in life is that I wanted to go fast in a way that made sense to who I am as a person. I wanted it to resonate in the depths of my soul, not the soles of my feet. Somewhere around the 8th grade, I found another key. It wasn't lying on the sidewalk this time. It was on a bookshelf in the library. It was a thesaurus. I'd become fascinated with word choice. The fact that there are all these words you can use to describe the same thing, but they're not all equally powerful. Mark Twain has said it really well, and I'm paraphrasing him, but he said something to the effect that the difference between a word that will get the job done and the right word is the difference between a lightning bug and a lightning bolt. Choose the right word and you can let her rip with the speed of eloquence. But you got to find the key that makes sense for you. So it really, and you got to believe that you can do it. So it really helps if early in life you have parents who believe in you. Because that gives you a lot of time to experiment with different keys until you find the one that works for you. My good friend Aaron Dunlap believes in his children, and so much so that he even wrote a song about it.
Aaron, why don't you come up here and tell us a little bit about that song and then sing it with the speed of eloquence.
The song's called Song for My Little Boy. Don't actually have a little boy, I have 2 little girls. They're fine. Just kidding, they're horrible. No, they're wonderful. I think I just chose to write about a boy because there's more rhymes with boy than girl. This can cover many children. I'm going to start singing. It's the morning of your life, so tap the drum and blow the pipe. Let's hold the world up like a toy. It's just a song from a little boy, now. The God above in his love gave you lungs to be proud of. But how long, oh how long, till that crying turns to song? First you walk and then you talk. Build a kingdom of a sidewalk. With a little help and a little bit of clay, you'll make a world in a half a day. In a half a day now. When you find lands alive, poking sticks all in the beehive, you know it's wrong, you hear them buzzing, you better start running, cousin. When you're 7 Lord in heaven, my, your bread does have some leaven. When your words are salty and I can't tell if you made them up or heard them somewhere else now. When you're 9 and the world is fine, sitting on a dock just passing time. You think you're fishing, but it ain't so. That worm fell off about an hour ago now. I could go on in this song with the years that follow along, but to be frank, it's mostly trouble, so let's pop this lovely bubble. I can see you drowsy, so I'll simmer down. I'll wrap you tight up in your gown. Life's but a dream, and the world's a toy. It's just a song from a little boy. Oh, from a little boy now.
Thanks, Aaron. Maybe you don't have a boy yet. Could be legitimate. Well, I may not have discovered word choice until the 8th grade, but my writing career began much earlier. I started writing my first novel, my own novel, in 3rd grade. But then I got in a fight with a kid on the way home from school, and I lost an entire third of my draft. So when you're a third grade wannabe writer and you lose a third of your draft, it's pretty hard to recover your mojo. Well, I know it. Oh, that's the problem with beginnings. Beginnings are hard because you got to start from scratch. Did you ever wonder where that phrase came from? Well, back in the mid-1800s, when they wanted to have a foot race, they didn't have fancy chalk machines that lay down neat chalk lines. All they had was their feet. So they would scratch a line in the dirt, start there. They didn't even have starting blocks back then. Well, I know what David Ramsey would say about that. Now, you may not know who he is, but David Ramsey is a financial advisor, and he has an interesting way of getting out of debt, or of building wealth. You build wealth by starting by getting out of debt, staying out. No credit cards. You've got to have an emergency fund. You cut up all your credit cards after you paid them off, of course. So what he has you do, first of all, is to lay out all your debts in a row, which is hard to do because who wants to face those? And then he does something counterintuitive. You'd think he'd tell you to start knocking off that one that has the biggest interest rate or the largest balance. No, other end. Start with the smallest debt and knock it out as fast as you can. Baby steps. You got to start with baby steps. Why? Because baby steps are easier to accomplish. And everyone knows that nothing succeeds like success. And so you knock that out and you get the ball rolling. He calls that his snowball method. So that's how you gain momentum. Well, I can just imagine what Ramsey would say to my third grade self. Kid, you've got it all wrong. What are you doing trying to write a novel? Didn't you just learn how to read and write in the first and second grade? Start with something small, like a short story. Or better yet, just make a scene or two. And you start to see a pattern in the scenes, and that helps you think of more things, and then you've got the ball rolling. Besides, I've read your draft, or at least what's left of it. What are you doing writing about cowboys getting in fights in bars? What do you know about cowboys? And when's the last time you've been in a bar? And if you have, you've got bigger problems to worry about than your writing career. Write about what you know about, kid. You seem to know a lot about getting in fights with kids on playgrounds. Write about that. Life experience. That's the starting blocks for the writer, kid. Well, and my friends, this is why we have the Monday blues. I'm not criticizing you, but I know some of you went out dancing last night. You were kicking up your heels and having fun. And now here you are tonight whiling away your hours in a performance. And tomorrow night you might be sitting down to your favorite shows on Netflix. What you're not doing is thinking about work. But then Monday morning's going to come around and it's going to feel like you're starting from scratch. That's why we've got the Monday blues. No use in my going downtown to work today. It's 8, I'm late, and it's marked down that way. Saturday and Sunday, fun to sport around, but no use denying Monday again you down. Saturday and Sunday, fun to sport around, but no use denying Monday will get you down. That old Monday will surely get you down. But starting from scratch wasn't the only problem I faced in launching my writing career. What was I doing carrying around the only draft of my novel back and forth from school? Probably stuffed in my back pocket. Beginnings are hard because they're fragile. But when I got older, I got a bit wiser. For instance, when I had a research paper to write in college, I'd get all bird-like about it. My nesting instinct would kick in, and I'd search for a protected place to build a nest. You need a protected place because, after all, a nest is a pretty flimsy thing. That's why birds build nests high up in trees, sheltered beneath a sheet of green and tucked in the mesh of supported limbs. A nest becomes a safe haven. Trees, you see, believe in birds. That's what I needed. I needed to find a protected place that could stand as a fortress of protection against the hardness of the world. And I needed a place to believe in what I was doing. That's why I'd always head off to the library. I knew they had bits of ideas lying around and lots of piles and piles of words that you could, just the kind of thing a guy needs to build a nest. And I knew they believed in what I was doing. I even had a card they gave me that said it. But the problem is that a library is more like a forest than a tree. Because there's lots of different places you can build a nest. There's the music room, the periodicals room. They've even got a room they call special collections for ideas that need extra protection. But what I needed was a place where my thoughts could soar. And I could pray down the majestic condors that were going to act as midwives to help me birth my ideas. That's why I'd always head off to the reference room. With their lofty ceilings and their long tables, reference rooms have a sense of grandeur. Reference rooms seem to me to believe in ideas as much as trees believe in birds. So I'd settle down on a long table and put my book bag down. And then my nesting thing would kick in and I'd get this burst of energy. Must have looked like I had drunk too much coffee on the surface. I'd be running back from the stacks, back from the card catalog, back then they had card catalogs, the card catalog to the book stacks and back and forth, and I'd have an armload of books, and I'd bring them back and they'd drop down on my table. Then I'd go over off to the periodicals room. I'd fly off to the periodicals room, and I would collect some journals and maybe Xerox some of the articles that looked important that I'd probably want to underline and write notes on, and I'd bring those back to my desk, set them down, and I'd get out my note cards and my notes from class. Pretty soon I had this dense circle of books and journals and Xeroxes and notes. Yeah, it looked sort of like a nest. And I'd sit myself down in that concentrated space and begin to read and write and meditate my thoughts and ideas. But that's only what it looked like on the outside. What I imagined inside was that I was a majestic, solitary bird at the beginning of all creation, like it says in Genesis, and the Spirit hovers over the surface of the deep. You've got to brood over the chaos, like a bird does. You hover over it, you watch it, you stay with it, give it lots of time, and you give the warmth of your breast to the unformed substance. Don't try to understand it or make sense, order out of the chaos. That's just disrespectful. You just watch over the warm sides and bright wings, and you tell it you believe in it. And you give it compassion, lots of compassion. And you stay for a long time. You stay with it longer than you think you have time for it. And then long after you've given up hope that anything will come of it, but while you're still showing up every day, all of a sudden the light shines out of the darkness and all by itself. So who needed you anyway? But someone's got to stand and watch. This next song I'm going to sing, well, I forgot to tell you that there's another reason the beginnings are fragile. It's an important reason too. They're fragile because in order for something new to come into being, the old order has to pass away, has to be ripped apart or fall apart, and what you're left with is chaos. And once you turn toward the chaos that rips you apart, you start to get confused, like you've never gotten confused before, and you doubt. You doubt that anything will come of this. I mean, it's deep. You doubt yourself. What made me think I could do this? You doubt your idea. It's the stupidest thing anyone's ever thought of. And you doubt life itself. No one will show up for this if you're making a concert. And so you got to keep believing. Believing is what carries you through the dark night of the soul into the dawn of a new day. This next song suggestive of all of these things: the inspiration, the engulfing chaos, the doubt you experience, the glimpse you think you see through the mist, believing that carries you through.
Someone dreams of a fire in a field, in a cold house in winter. Your head on the table, your mind constructing a machine. Something taps at the door, calling you out from the deep reverie of making and unmaking. The wood is dark and full of veins, lost in its haze. A shade through the thick trees of night. And hear the distant sound of an engine moving its pistons and gears, heavy with shatters and sighs. How it seems you always heard it coming, long before it appears. Embodied will of earth, will of earth, set to flame a mental desire, semblance of an unknown name, carried home with you, unwitting all night, your body singing. In the hallway mirror, something stirs. You cannot say what it is, only that it grows, grows, like a wild fire in a storm, that it tastes of steam, that you would lay every number in the world on air, and still it would not be. by ruling arms, and the dark heart within yearning to pull everything back while you stand at the threshold. It was unusual to see so many people gathered on promontory points so early in the day. I have to come down here on warm, sunny mornings, Sunday mornings, and sit by the lake and read a book or just watch the sunlight dance across the water. But a couple had already grabbed the shade beneath my favorite tree, so I had to sit further back on the lawn. And because I wasn't used to it, just sitting this far back, that's probably why I looked up from my book more often than not. And that's when I saw it. Just out of the corner of my eye at first. I thought it was just like the sunlight reflecting off of an object. But as I looked closer, I saw it had kind of an independent source of movement, an internal source. And it looked, well, the sunlight was in my eyes. I couldn't see very well, but it did look sort of like a figure going around from person to person, and a lot of people were shaking their heads no. And so I said, well, maybe this is a panhandler. There was a guy who laid his bike, a biker who laid his bike on the grass, and he was just sitting there staring off to space, probably contemplating the meaning of life. And this figure comes up to him, and they start talking. Well, he gets sort of intrigued, so this figure sits down, and as he's turning, I almost see a smile, kind of desperate smile. Didn't look good. Well, they talked for a while, but then the biker lost interest, and the figure stood up and started walking away. That's when he saw me. He started walking towards me. Again, the sunlight was in my eyes, so I couldn't see him very well, but I could hear him clear. Excuse me. I don't mean to bother you, but I'm wondering if you could help me out. You see, I'm a real hard worker, and I think I've got a lot of potential. I can be pretty substantive, but as you can tell, I'm not all that real right now. I'm just an idea. And what I need is for someone who will buy into what I've got to offer and do the hard work to make me manifest in what you folks call the real world. Well, he went on to describe his character, and I have to admit, he was a pretty good idea. But when I thought about it, the work it would take to make it manifest and the risk involved,
But you know, the real clinker was this. He didn't resonate inside. There was no resonance in the depths of my soul. So this was a good idea, but it wasn't my idea. So I had to tell him no, I couldn't help him out. He didn't press the issue, he just stood up and turned to walk away, and I felt a breeze of sadness as he left, and he seemed to sort of disappear into the sunlight. Well, now that I'd gotten used to recognizing these figures, I could see them everywhere. On the street corner, in the boardroom, in the library, lots of them in the library. Remember when I found that key on the sidewalk and I was got this inspired to build this go-kart out of that key, around that key? Maybe that wasn't my idea. Maybe that was one of these figures roaming around, searching for someone to buy into it, and I was just this naive young boy who didn't know it was an unworkable idea. But this isn't the perspective we take on ideas, is it? We talk about my idea. That's my idea, especially the good ones. The bad ones, that's your idea. It's not like that, though. Ideas, beginnings, they belong to life. They don't belong to us. We're participating in them, but they're bigger than us. Consider children, for instance. You're simply involved in bringing them into the world, and then you're responsible for raising them until they can stand on their own 2 feet. But just go ahead and try to take over their lives. See how that works. I like the way Khalil Gibran says it. Your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. They come through you, but they are not to you. And though they are with you, yet they belong not to you. The same is true of the beginnings we get involved in. Sure, they start out small and cute, like a puppy dog, but what happens to that puppy dog? Becomes a German Shepherd. And that's what happens to beginnings. They start out small, but then they get more involved. Haven't you ever heard someone say, or you maybe said this yourself, if I knew then what I know now, I might never have gotten involved. You get in pretty deep pretty quickly, don't you? And then it's hard to turn around a lot of times. Well, the only way I know how to protect yourself from that is to only sign on to ideas that resonate in the depths of your soul. It's kind of like you were meant to make that idea become manifest. It's part of your destiny. But even then, or perhaps especially then, you may be in for a rough ride. It may require you every ounce of energy you have and then come back and ask for more. Because life is big, and it gets bigger all the time once you get involved with something. And it just carries you along, and you have a hard time resisting it. Consider, for instance, Vincent van Gogh. Who knows why he became mentally unstable? I don't even know why he started painting. I haven't read that, but I just imagine he just liked to paint pictures, or he just enjoyed seeing color. But then he kept doing it, and pretty soon he realized he was seeing things in ways that no one else had ever seen them before. But he couldn't stop himself because of the mystery. It pulls you in. Just one more picture. I just need one more picture from you, Vincent, and then you'll figure it out. Pretty soon he's involved in a project that's going to transform the entirety of human perception. Well, I dare say anyone might lose their marbles if they were into a project that big. We know a lot about Van Gogh's struggles because he wrote letters to his brother Theo and described his struggles. And we have a good set of those letters, and Ben Moore, as a composer, has collected fragments from those letters to create a song that gives us an image of the suffering that Van Gogh endured. And appropriately titled, Already Broken.
brother, that I might be a lighter burden in your life. But I can see a time that's just on the horizon, a time when you might show my pictures without shame. It's true, I'm often sick and troubled, but there is harmony inside of me. For in the forest little hut I see a picture, and I believe that very soon, yes, very soon, dear brother, you will be proud to show my work. You will be satisfied, I'm sure. You will have something for your sacrifices, brother. At times I feel already broken. So I grew up in a musical family, and it was expected of each of us boys, I have 3 brothers, that when we came of age, we would learn to play a musical instrument. I chose the trumpet. And when you learn how to play a musical instrument in a school context like I do, you also get involved in performance. So this was the first performance of my life, a band concert. And included in that program for that concert was the song, "Oh, When the Saints Go Marching In." Now there's a lot of brass in that song. And I was terrified that I was going to make a mistake so loud that everyone was going to stop and stare and snicker. Well, this was the night now before the performance, and I'd gotten to sleep okay. But then in the dead of night, I was awakened by what we call the night terrors. Now, when a person dies a painful death, their last hours or minutes are sometimes characterized by thrashing about and weeping and wailing and moaning. We call it the death throes. Well, at least psychologically, the night terrors are not all that different from the death throes. My stomach was so tied up and I thought, in knots, I thought it would burst open and my guts would spill out all over my sheets and blankets. I was twisting and turning, trying to escape some indescribable pain. I don't know where it came from. And these menacing voices whispering in my ear, these unthinkable things. You know what I'm talking about. You've probably heard them too. And then something incredible happened, just completely unexpected. I burped. Yeah, I burped. And everything got quiet. My stomach calmed down. I stopped twisting and turning. The menacing voices quieted down. And I was at peace. Then something started to flow through me. First, just as a memory. It was the memory of all of the practice sessions I had done. All the band practice, and all of the practicing I'd done at home alone. I knew this music. I knew that I knew this music. And so confidence was starting to grow in me. Now, side by side with the fear, because after all, this was the first performance of my life. But it was there. And then something else, just really surprising. It wasn't another burp. It was excitement. I started to realize
I was in 6th grade. And in 6th grade, I thought, "Oh, When the Saints" was a pretty cool song. And I was excited about sharing it with an audience. As the decades go on, as I remember that, and I've remembered other situations like it, something more mysterious seems to me to have started that night. I started to claim something of my life inheritance. You see, my father was a pastor, and every Sunday morning and evening he would get up into the pulpit and preach a sermon without hesitation. He was at ease in front of an audience. In fact, he seemed to flourish there. My mother was less comfortable in front of an audience, but she had studied piano in college, and because my father preached in small congregations, she often got called upon to play piano for congregational singing and for what we called back then special music. She did it with ease, never seemed to be worried at all. But for an inheritance to be received, something has to die. Now, my parents didn't have to die to receive this inheritance, but that fear did. Now, I still get butterflies. I got butterflies over there in that room before coming out this evening. But I don't get that debilitating fear that I experienced that night. Now, I'm not going to say it died that night. It started to go away, but I had many repetitions of this painful experience of discomfort before I realized I could just relax. But what is important is a pattern got set on that night. You want to overcome stage fright? 2 things: preparation, passion. Preparation gives you confidence, gives you confidence. And confidence, it yields passion. Now, sometimes in our culture we think confidence yields bravado or that I'm something. But confidence, the authentic confidence, gives you passion. And that fights stage fright, because the more you care about what you're talking about or what you're presenting, the less concerned you are about yourself. So that pattern started that night. But the fact is that something had to die. Beginnings are hard because endings are hard. I like the way T.S. Eliot says it in the poem titled East Coker. It's part of his series of 4 quartets. The opening line of that poem is, "In my beginning is my end." And the last line, "In my end is my beginning." Now those are pretty profound. There are a lot of a lot of nuances of what that means. But the fact is that beginnings are hard because endings are hard. In the case of like stage fright, sometimes it's hard to let whatever it is, the ending clings to you. It doesn't want to let you go. There are some people who never overcome stage fright their whole life. Then there are the endings that you have trouble letting go of. You know, like the person who's really stuck in the status quo. We like the status quo because it's familiar. But something new, that's mysterious, and that's scary. And so we resist the beginning. And then there's a third category. There may be many categories, but there's a third category of endings that's difficult, and that's the tragic ending. So it's a beginning that's hoisted onto us. We don't want it, but it's the kind of beginning where you say, all we could do is pick up the pieces and move on, because your life has been shattered. For instance, the death of a loved one. Well, Emily Dickinson has written a poem about this difficult beginning, the morning after death, and William Bokum has set it to music.
The morning after
night is deepened and you're finally sound asleep. The weight of thick blankets on this cold night add resistance to anything that might awaken you. Even if you wanted to wake up early, there's no alarm clock to come to your aid. In fact, there's no clock at all. You live in a small village in a time before the invention of electricity. You vowed you would awaken yourself at the appropriate hour, but that was before you had trouble getting to sleep. The voice that calls your name is so faint that you at first think you're dreaming. But then you hear the drum beat and the muffled sound of donkey hooves rising and falling, and you see the light of the lantern as the dawn caller repeats your name, calling you to awaken for suhoor. Suhoor is one of the daily meals taken during Ramadan, the month during which Muslims are called to fast and pray from sunrise to sunset. Suhoor is the meal eaten before dawn, followed by special prayers. The practice of the Muzarati, the dawn caller, began in the Middle Ages. Since there was no electricity, there was no artificial means to enable awakening so early in the morning. So the dawn caller would pass through the village in twilight during Ramadan, riding on a donkey. Children would accompany him, carrying a lantern to light his way. Beating on his drum, he would call out to the villagers by name. But the dawn caller is not isolated to the Muslim faith. Each one of us is called by life itself. And each is called by his or her most intimate name, called to awaken to the dawn of a new day. And yet, as compelling as this image is, we find an even more arresting image in the book of Psalms. And the urgency of the image is heightened if we know a bit about the context in which it was given. Maybe you know this story from the Bible about a shepherd boy named David, who's been plucked from the fields where he's been tending his father's sheep to play the lyre for King Saul. In so doing, soothing his soul when evil spirits overcome him. But then David slays a giant on the battlefield and becomes so celebrated among the people that King Saul becomes murderously jealous of him. David must flee for his life, all the while being pursued by King Saul and his army. This then is where we find him, hiding in a cave. Now there are many myths concerning the dawn which speak of the sun as retreating into a cave at night, only to emerge at twilight to begin its diurnal path across the sky. And we're all familiar with the Easter story, which tells of the Christ rising out of his tomb, a cave, at dawn. These images take on heightened significance if we return to the story of David. From the depths of his hiding place in a dark cave, he composes a psalm of praise in which he makes this surprising declaration. Be exalted above the heavens, O God. Let your glory be known upon all the earth. They laid a trap for me, for my steps. They bent down my soul. They dug a pit before me, but they themselves fell into it. My heart is steadfast, O God. My heart is steadfast. I will sing and chant praise. Awake, my soul. Awake, O harp and lyre. I shall awaken the dawn. Now, most biblical scholars suggest what David meant by this declaration was that he would rise while it is still dark to begin singing and playing songs of praise, thus only seeming to awaken the dawn. How boring the literal interpretation is. I prefer the more striking image, the image of David, by means of song, awakening the dawn itself. Such capacity resides in the soul of each of us. Life's longing for itself cries out from the depths of our souls, beseeching us to discover that song within that will awaken the dawn of a new day. In celebration of such an awakening, I've asked a couple of friends to join me for the final song, which is a tribute to the new day. Ron and Andrew.
You are the new day. You are the new day. I will love you more than me and more than yesterday. If you can but prove to me you are the new day, send the sun in time for dawn. Let the birds all hail the morning. Love of life will urge me, say, you are the new day. When I lay me down at night, knowing we must that this night might be yesterday. Thoughts that we as humans small could slow worlds and end it all lie around me where they fall before the new day. One more day when time is running out for everyone. Like a breath I knew would come, I reach for the new day. Hope is my philosophy, just needs days in which to be. Love of life means hope for me, born on a new day. You are the new day. Before you have a seat, if you would, for a minute. Before we have refreshments, there are two people I cannot avoid. I must say something about. First of all, Andy Schultz, my voice teacher. Considering I was tone deaf when I started working with him, it was a pretty good job. And Brian Sainer, my rehearsal coach.